are you feeling?
Feeling good.
How's it feel back to kind of just be out here and be practicing again after the end of last season, kind of dealing with some stuff?
I think you can't ask for a better place to be, a better time to be alive. I just feel like I'm blessed to be able to do what I do. Glad to be back out here and ready to get it going again.
What did you kind of notice about this new running back group, some of the fellows? How are you liking it so far?
I think a lot of the guys we brought in, they add different aspects to the game, and hopefully they can come in and contribute. And so I think we all have a piece to play in this offense. So glad to see some of the guys come out and showcase what they can do.
You're one of the few guys who have been here now for 4 years at ASU. How special is that?
I feel old, to be honest. I feel old. This is my 4th year, so I've been around the block, been around here for a while. So it feels good to just know, we're building something special here. We had some special seasons, and trying to continue to do those great things.
Can you talk about what it was like to watch and not be able to play, and what did you learn about yourself, and what did you learn about, anything that you learned by being out and watching?
Yeah, so I actually had a similar story. My junior year of high school, when I moved back to Texas, I, kind of went through the same thing, and I had to sit out a season. And I just had learned how to be, emotionally stable. I got closer with my faith. So I learned a lot of different things, how to be a team player, and, just come out and, cheer on the guys and, help in whatever way I can. I think it just helped me build my character a little bit more.
How long was it before you were full strength, ready to go, completely recovered from the injury?
I want to say it was, from the time being, it was a couple months. Like, I want to say when I was full, able to go again about four or so months when I started back running. Then, trying to do some change of direction things. So it was a rocky process. So I'm glad to, be healthy again and, ready to get going.
So when was that, like December or January when you were kind of full go again?
Full go, it was around the end of December, somewhere around there. January, just, giving myself time to fully heal and, just trusting the process.
Was it harder emotionally or physically?
I'd say emotionally, just missing out a lot of the game. As you know, I love football. And this is what I do for a living. Like, I put my all into it. I work hard every day. So, just not being able to really, see those rewards or reap those benefits, it kind of, hurts a little bit. So, I think my support system is great. My family, my friends, they always was in my corner, keeping me uplifted. So, I'm really grateful for those people in my life. And, I was able to, break through it and, looking forward to some great things in the future.
Kyson, you and Malik had a pretty cool dynamic over the last couple of years, and obviously he's moved on. Do you guys stay in contact, and you guys kind of traded giving advice to one another, in your new spots?
Yeah, that's a brother for life. We have a far relationship beyond football. He'll be my brother for life, and we share a lot of stories, and we still communicate to this day. So yeah, I'm rooting for him over there at Texas, and I'm sure he's doing the same thing for me.
What was it like in the lineup with Cutter today a little bit? What have you seen from him so far? Just hitting around, saw him high-fiving some guys. It seems like the teams are starting to rally around him a bit.
Yeah, just a good team guy. He's got a little bit of experience, so just good to see him out there slinging it around and being a true leader, just like some of the other quarterbacks we have. So good to see a good change up and switching the guys that are out there. So expecting big things from all the quarterbacks.
How did dealing with the injury kind of help you with today so far and being like a leader with guys and so far this spring and everything like that?
Dealing with my injury, like I said, it kind of helped me be more of a team player. Just looking out for the guys that are new, some of the guys that are younger. So just uplifting a lot of guys and pushing them through practice. A lot of people came out here in this heat kind of surprised them a little bit more than what a lot of people expected. So yeah, just helping them get through the day and just uplifting them and trying to be vocal, communicate on my end. So just trying to help those guys.
You talked about having a larger leadership role last year when you got in after Scat left and everything. And from last year to now, what do you feel like you learned about yourself as a leader, and how do you think you want to continue to grow in that?
I say last year from then to now, kind of more vocal. I've always been a lead by example type of guy, not more of a rah-rah type of guy. But I think just, you know, the whole process allowed me to be more vocal and just, you know, express, you know, the things I've been through and the experiences I have, and, you know, just kind of share that with some of the people around.
He always said he could play offense, but how weird is it to see Clayton over playing offense?
It's very weird to see him because, you know, him being on defense, we kind of go at it a lot. Him trying to tackle me and me trying to get away from him. So, yeah, it's kind of taking some used to getting to seeing him some of the unit meetings and, you know, seeing him on our sideline in that maroon jersey. So, yeah, it's gonna get some getting used to. But he's also been helpful, just, you know, helping me understand some of the D-line tactics, what they are taught. So it's been good.
Over here. Talking about how this team's like the biggest size-wise team he's had here at ASU. You noticed that looking around? You're like, hey.
Yeah, I actually noticed that in the weight room, lifting and just seeing a lot of the guys being able to, you know, lift some heavy weight. So, you know, just seeing a lot of guys' bodies transform also. So, yeah, we do got some size this year.
From your running back perspective, what sort of things do you have to work out with Cutter just to get on the same page?
Just the norm, meshes, timing on routes, and that's up to us to, you know, kind of adjust to him. And we got a lot of different quarterbacks, so, you know, a lot of different guys do a lot of different things, and, you know, they have a little bit different adjustments we have to make. So just, you know, getting pace on with everybody and understanding, you know, what they want from us.
Over here, it's Aya Abdi for Devils Detail. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
so
you too.
what have you seen from the transfer guys that the Sun Devils acquired in the transfer portal, and how they're going to benefit like the young guys, and especially with the current veterans who have been around this team as well? What do you envision for this year as well?
Yeah, I think we got to see a lot of like spurts from a lot of different guys. You know, some of the new receivers, some of the new O-linemen. You know, we just got to see a lot of different things from them. And hopefully they can all contribute to the offense. It's up to the veteran guys and the guys that's been here to help mesh those guys in well and, you know, show them the ropes a little bit. So that's what we hope to do in the spring. And, you know, hopefully we can connect this offense and, you know, get it rolling.
Talking about meshing guys in, what are some specific aspects of the culture that you're trying to pass on to the guys and be like, okay, this is how we do things here?
I think the biggest thing for me is I want to express, you know, how hard we play, how detailed we are. So for me, in like my room and, you know, just what I emphasize around, like when I'm going around to practice, is just being detailed and working hard and just, you know, trying to push through those, you know, tough times, because ultimately that's our brand of football, is just playing tough and being detailed, trying to be smart. So yeah, that's what I want to push for the guys and the newcomers mostly.
What are some of those day-to-day details that you don't see on the practice field?
What'd you say?
What are some of those day-to-day details that aren't on the practice field but off the field?
Day-to-day details like taking notes, you know, just being a good person around the facility, just going the extra mile, doing, you know, taking care of your business, taking care of your body. Like little small details like that go a long way when you're talking about, you know, football and spring ball and, you know, those things.
There's extra motivation for this season, just the way last season ended. You guys kind of feel that coming in this year?
Yeah, it's definitely up to us. Some of the guys who were here last year just kind of, you know, bring some of that, you know, pressure on, you know, the newer guys to come on with it. Definitely not the results that we wanted, but you know, it's up to us to, you know, bring up a higher standard. You know, those guys last year, we had a lot of great guys, and they held the standard for us. So I think it's up to myself and a lot of the older guys to uphold that standard.